Evening. This is the current affairs session for July 9. So let us have a look at the important articles. So amidst the controversy prevailing over the NEET examination, so there's an article why NEET does not work. Okay. So it's an important article from the mains perspective, GS2, government policies and interventions and issues related to education. So what is the ongoing story? Rajan Ramanathan and Sundaresan Chelamuthu write, since its inception about decade ago, National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test NEET examination has been a politically contentious issue in Tamil Nadu. The recent turn of events has made it a national issue. Okay, so the recent turn of events with respect to paper leak and all has made NEET examination issue a national issue, and already there has been disputes and controversies and issues with respect to this NEET examination, especially from Tamil Nadu. Okay, so what are the key takeaways from this article? So, article mentions that this year more than 24 lakh candidates sat for the NEET examination after paying a fees ranging between 1,000 rupees to 1,700, depending upon the category and all. The fees varies. Okay, now, this imagine this 24 lakh candidates paying this much fees. So that resulted into collection of alone 337 crore to the National Testing Agency. Okay, so 337 crore was collected in the form of the application fee, and this makes MBBS dream virtually unsustainable from the students who belong to the weaker strata, economically weaker strata, despite scoring high marks in the NEET examination. So it basically says that the entire process of this MBBS has become a too costly one. Uh, right from the beginning of the entrance, like the application itself is too costly. So that makes the dream of MBBS a costly one, a costly affair in India. And this entry requirement, where you have to pay such a big amount as a fees, it can undermine the importance of excelling in high school. This in turn, so undermine the importance in high school in the sense now what is happening, your selection to the MBBS, it depends upon your performance in the NEET examination, and because of which we often overlook our 12th grades. So we oftenly see that students aim to just score 60% or 50% in the 12th grade. However, and the entire focus is on the NEET examination because that is the primary screening test for your MBBS. So that says that if you are making such entry requirement, if your seat in the MBBS is dependent on such examination, this will undermine your performance in the high school, that is in your 12th grade examination. And this in turn lowers the standards of the school education. Apart from that, state government and the state education ministers, they have no say in the selection process of the future doctors in their states. Okay, so that also issues raises a question of state federalism, where they do not have any say in the selection of doctors of their state with respect to this entire examination process. Now, when we talk about Tamil Nadu in the past, they have conducted several experiments with respect to entrance examination. Like in 1970s, they had started an interview system. So depending upon your interview and all, your selection would be done to a particular course. Then in 1983, they had introduced the system of two-third weightage being given to the marks in your second higher secondary education examination. That is your 12th standard examination. Okay, so two-third weightage will be given to the marks scored in 12th standard and remaining to your interview or any other entrance being conducted. Following the recommendations from the Anand Krishnan committee, state in the sense we are here specifically talking about Tamil Nadu. Okay, so Tamil Nadu had abolished entrance exams and they had conducted the admission to medical and engineering solely on the basis of higher secondary marks. Okay, so earlier interview system was there. Then okay, I'll write over here. Earlier interview system they had kept. Then in 1983, they had afforded two-third weightage. to your 12th standard marks. And then on the recommendation of Ananda Krishnan committee, they abolished entrance exams and all, and they conducted admission to medical and engineering colleges solely on the basis of their higher secondary marks. So whatever you score in the 12th standard, that will be the basis of your selection in the engineering colleges and medical. The reason being that, as I mentioned, because of these entrance examination, students do not aim to score high in the 12th grade. So maybe that could have been the reason why they abolished entrance examination. But then the NEET examination, the national level examination was introduced, okay? And after the introduction of the NEET, government ensured social equality and inclusivity to an extent by providing reservation to government school students. Okay, so even after the introduction of the NEET examination, Tamil Nadu government ensured social equality and inclusivity by ensuring that reservation is given to the government school students. Okay, so this was as per the recommendation of the P. Kalaya Rasan and A.K. Rajan committee. Okay. So Tamil Nadu experiences over 5 decades demonstrate that factors like infrastructure, faculty numbers, extent of patient care services determine the quality of young doctors. Okay, so infrastructure, medical infrastructure, faculty in the medical colleges, and extent of patient care services, all that play a very important role in the assessing the quality of the young doctors. Okay. Now, amidst all the controversy which is going on this NEET examination, author says that NEET needs to be re-evaluated. Now, why? Now, this is important. Public health is a state subject, so you need to remember this. This can be an MCQ. Public health. Okay, so now public health is a state subject. It comes in the state list. However, education is a concurrent subject. Okay, concurrent list. Fine. Yeah. So all states need to be taken into confidence before framing any admission processes, especially in the institution controlled by the state government. Okay, so it says that health is a state subject, education is a concurrent subject, and anything like if you are thinking about the health education and all, you need to take into consideration the opinion of the states, and then only you have to come to some concrete mechanism. Okay. Uh, if NEET is riddled with problem, then what are the alternatives? Okay, so if there are issues in the NEET examination, you need to explore the alternatives. So it means that instead of one single NEET examination, what can be done? You can have a summative assessment, okay, of 2 to 3 years of performance in the school education, along with some aptitude tests. So you keep NEET like aptitude tests, but apart from that aptitude test, you should also take into the consideration your overall performance in your 11th standard, 12th standard, or say your 10th standard of 2 to 3 years. Even marks weightage should be given to the overall performance in these grades plus the NEET examination, and holistically a candidate should be selected for the MBBS or engineering. Okay, so that is the basic just given over here. The primary objective of refining the medical entrance process is to ensure that students who get high average marks, they get admission to the government-run medical colleges. But apart from that, you even need to ensure that the poor people, disadvantaged, even they are adequately represented in the medical field, and so that they can contribute making healthcare accessible to their communities. Okay, so you need to ensure both the things, that those who score good marks, they get admission into government run medical colleges, plus you need to even ensure that the disadvantaged ones, even they get admission, and even they should become the doctors so that they can serve their communities. So that's it from this article. Let's come to the next one. How climate change fueled Hurricane Beryl's record early intensification. Okay, so this is an important article from the film's perspective, from the mains perspective, GS1 geography. Okay, so what is the ongoing story? So you must be aware about the Hurricane Beryl. It became the earliest storm on record during the Atlantic hurricane season to have reached highest category 5 of classification. Okay, so let us try to understand what is mentioned over here. So hurricanes we all are aware that hurricanes are basically tropical cyclones. So we know that India's east coast is prone to tropical cyclones. We call in India as a cyclone. Similarly, in America, Mexico, Caribbean, we call such cyclones as the hurricanes. Okay, so hurricanes are nothing but the tropical cyclones, and they use warm, moist air as a fuel. Okay, and they are built over ocean waters, warm ocean waters near equator. Okay, near equator. Fine, so these are nothing but the tropical cyclones. Warm, moist air is the fuel which provides its the energy or drive, and they get this fuel from warm ocean water. Okay, and they are formed near equator. Fine. So let's come to this hurricane Beryl. What is mentioned about this hurricane Beryl? The storm which tore through Caribbean islands. Okay, earlier this month killed at least 11 people after triggering intense floods and dangerous winds in Jamaica, St. Vincent, Grenada, Northern Venezuela, and then it made fall in Texas, USA as category 1. So by the time it reached USA, Texas, its energy dropped down and it got converted into category 1 storm. Okay. However, it caused a lot of flooding across the streets, knocking out power for more than 2 million people in a state. Okay. So that was the intensity of Hurricane Beryl. Okay. So your second statement describes hurricane. Hurricane are tropical storms form over warm ocean water near equator. So this is important from the prelims perspective. When the warm, moist air from the ocean surface rises upward, a lower pressure is created below. Okay, so basically, if this is the ocean, so air, the moist, warm, moist air, it rises up. Okay, and since the air rises up, here the low pressure is created. Okay, so here the low pressure is created, and as we know that the wind flows from high pressure to low pressure. So from the high pressure, the winds will start blowing over here, and this rising moist air will form the clouds. Okay, so the clouds will be formed. So hurricane or tropical storms, they form over warm ocean water near the equator when the warm, moist air from the ocean surface rises upward. A low pressure area is formed below. Air from the surrounding area with the higher pressure rushes into the low pressure, eventually rising after it also becomes warm and moist. Okay. So, as warm, moist air rises, it cools down, and water in the air form clouds and thunderstorms. So as I mentioned, if this is an ocean, so the warm, as because of the global warming, also the oceans are warming. So this warm water, it rises up in the form of the water vapor, and as it goes up, it will gradually cool and it will form clouds. Okay, and here what will be formed? Here there will be the low pressure area created. Okay, here in this. And so from the neighboring high pressure area, the winds will rush at a very high speed, resulting into storms. Okay. So this whole system, this is important. The second last line, as you can see, this whole system of cloud and winds gains strength and momentum using ocean's heat. So what is the fuel? The fuel is ocean's heat and the water that evaporates from its surface. Okay. The last statement is again important. Storm systems with the wind speeds of 119 kilometer per hour and above are classified as hurricanes. Okay, so initially just a depression is there. If it intensifies and if the speed is more than 119 kilometer per hour, then they are classified as hurricanes. Okay, so if you look at this hurricane Beryl, so its path is like this. Okay, so Monday, 2 p.m., Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, so this is the path across the Caribbean. Okay, here. So hurricanes are classified using Saffir-Simpson wind scale. You can see over here the first line, Saffir-Simpson wind scale is used for the classification of hurricane, and they're classified into 5 categories, category 1 to category 5, based on the wind speed. Okay, so category 1 is the wind speed of 119 to 153, and category 5 is the strongest one, 252 km per hour or higher. Okay, and usually the hurricanes with the category 3 and more are the major ones which have the potential to inflict a significant damage. Okay, now what is a hurricane season? So hurricane season in the Atlantic region, it begins in the month of June. Okay, and it lasts until November. But the first major hurricane, it do not form until September. So though the season is June to November, but over the years, like it has been observed that the first major, the big hurricane, it forms around the month of September. But now it formed in June, July itself. Okay, so this is because now why it is usually formed in the month of September? Why September? The reason being that, see, what is the basic principle of forming of hurricane? You require moist air, right? So the ocean should be warm. So by September, the ocean, till the September, the ocean is not warm enough. Okay, so you can see over here, this is because till that time, ocean is not warm enough either at the surface or deeper down to fuel such strong hurricanes. Okay, but now because of global warming, the oceans are warming at a very high rate, and in the month of June, July itself, the warming began. So now we are seeing that the major hurricanes, instead of happening in September, we are seeing them in June, July itself. Okay, so that is being mentioned over here. But still, scientists are still debating what could be the reason. Okay, is global warming the reason for the early formation? Climate change is the reason. Still, there is no consensus, but this is the probable accepted reason that climate change could have been the important reason why the hurricane occurred early. Okay, that's it from this article. Let's come towards the next article. Behind Russia's high income. Okay, so international events from the mains perspective, GS2 and GS3, international relations and Indian economy. Okay, so what is the ongoing story? Earlier this month, World Bank upgraded Russia from an upper middle income country to a high income one. So basically, Russia's status has been upgraded earlier, like since 2014. It was an upper middle income country, and now it has become high income country. Okay, so it's an amazing thing. Russia is fighting a war, and still the status is being upgraded. Why? The ranking is boosted by growth in trade, growth in the financial sector, in the construction sector, and this has resulted into increase in the real GDP 3.6% and nominal GDP 10.9%. So that is the reason why Russia's status has been upgraded. Okay, so what are the key takeaways? Uh, the improvement, however, is on account of the war economy and is unlikely to endure, according to most experts. Okay, so experts say that it is whatever has happened, it's because of the war economy, and it is unlikely that it will sustain or endure. Okay, so let's come to World Bank's classification. World Bank classifies economies into 4 groups depending upon their per capita gross national income in US dollar. Okay, so depending upon your per capita GNI in US dollar, countries are classified into 4 categories. Okay, so this is important. The first category is low income, second category is lower middle, third category is upper middle, and the fourth one is high income. So Russia was in this category, upper middle, but now Russia has been shifted to the high category. Fine, so that we need to remember. And for high income countries, uh, the per capita GNI should be 14,000 US dollars or more. Okay, so that is there. So in non in if you so this you need to know that World Bank does the classification into 4. Okay, lower, the lower middle, upper middle, and high. Okay. When we talk about Russia's ranking in nominal terms, Russia ranks 72 in per capita GNI and 53rd in the PPP basis, purchasing power parity basis. Okay. Uh, Russia has been fighting, Ukraine, which has been fighting Russia's invasion since February 2022, even it has seen an upgrade. So even Ukraine improved its status from lower middle income country to an upper middle income country. Okay, so lower you can see over here, second category, and upper is here. So Ukraine from the second category, it has jumped towards the third category. Okay. Other countries who have shown the improvements are Algeria, it's an African country, then Iran and Mongolia. They too have moved from the lower middle to upper middle category. Okay. So this is all these things are important. Nowadays, UPSC is going into the factual details. So these things are important. Okay. So you need to remember that even Algeria, Iran, and Mongolia have moved from lower middle to upper middle category. Okay. Now we'll have a look at the map and let's talk about our country, India. Where does India stand? Okay. So you can see over here, India, color of India. So it's a lower middle income country. So India stands into the second category. High income country are the blue ones. You can see over here, Canada, America, okay, Greenland, then European countries. You can see over here, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Britain, okay. Then the Scandinavian country, okay, so Norway, Sweden, Finland, okay. Now Russia is there. Then your Saudi Arabia, then Australia, fine. So all these countries are the high income countries. Then yeah, so these are the high income countries. Then upper middle, so these countries orange in color, majority of the South American countries, then Mexico. Then here you can see over here, these the former partners of Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, these countries over here. Okay, China. So these all are the upper middle. And India, remember, second category. Okay, so that is there. So if you look at the situation, only 13% of the South Asian countries are low income. 10% of the Middle East and North Africa are now low income. In Latin America and Caribbean, 44% countries are now high income. And in Europe, high income countries, 69. So majority of the European countries are the high income countries. Okay. So that is there. More about Russia, the resilience of Russia, which is now under more individual sanctions than Iran, Cuba, and North Korea combined, has come as a surprise. Okay, so it shows that despite being subjected to sanctions more than the combined ones of Iran, Cuba, and North Korea, still Russia has shown a strong resilience. Okay, restrictions on trade and financing from G7 countries and European Union resulted into trade diversion to China, India, Turkey, Central Asia, uh, South Caucasus, and investment in new infrastructure and logistics. Okay, so despite of all these things, despite of putting sanctions on Russia, restrictions on Russia, diversion of trade from Russia to other countries, Russia has shown its resilience. Okay, now, the article goes on saying that why the curbs haven't worked. Okay. So sanction on the reason being that oil. Okay. So the sanctions on Russia's energy sector, oil, they are not as tight as the ones which were imposed on Venezuela or Iran. And as a result, we even know that India too took the advantage of this and imported a lot of oil from Russia. So the article goes on saying that probably since the restrictions on the Russian energy sector, they were not as tight as the ones on Venezuela or Iran. And as a result, Russia might have sustained these restrictions. Okay. Apart from that, investment. So corporate investments has recovered since 2022, adding an additional 4.5% points to the growth in Russian GDP. Then investment is flowing in Russia's defense sector, manufacturing. So overall, investments are coming into Russia in the defense sector and the manufacturing sector. Consumption also, the private consumption has also recovered in Russia. So that has also added towards the growth. Okay. So all this has resulted into the increase in the per capita income. Okay. And yeah, for your information, that India has been buying large amount of Russian oil. And India, like when you look at the purchase and the trade between India and Russia, the bilateral trade has reached all-time high of $65 billion in financial year 2023-2024 between India and Russia. But however, India has to strike a right balance between Russia and the Western allies. Okay. Let's come towards the next article. India to sign, ratify High Seas Treaty. Okay. So preliminary examination, current affairs, mains examination, GS2, GS3. Okay. What is the ongoing story? India has decided to sign and ratify the High Seas Treaty, a global agreement for the conservation and protection of biodiversity in the oceans. This is often compared to 2015 Paris Agreement, its impact and in its reach. Okay. So, what is this High Seas Treaty? Let us try to understand it. So let us first try to understand what do you mean by high seas. Okay. So this classification is being done under UN clause, United Nations Convention on Law of Sea. Okay. So this is the baseline. So you can see over here, this is the, yeah, the first one. This is the baseline. Okay. So from the baseline, that is the land. Okay. Till 12, this is nautical miles, 12 nautical miles. So this is called as a territorial sea. This is called as a territorial sea. Okay. And from the baseline, till 200 nautical miles. You can see where 200 nautical miles. This is called as exclusive economic zone. Fine. So from the baseline till 12 nautical miles, it's a territorial sea. And from the baseline till 200 nautical miles, it is an exclusive economic zone. And the area. So for example, if you consider India, okay. So up to 12 nautical. So this is, for example, here is the baseline. So up to 12 nautical miles, it will be territorial waters for India. Okay. And from the baseline to 200 nautical miles, it will be economic, exclusive economic zone. Okay. So here India have certain rights, but beyond this is the high sea. You can see over here high sea. So this is not an exclusive property of any country. This is common property of the nations, common property. Okay. So now you can understand that the treaty is being signed for this high sea, protection of the high sea. Okay. So let's have a look at the important pointers. So key takeaways. Yeah, key takeaways. The high seas, oceans outside, you can see outside the national boundaries of the countries are international commons and open for use by all. Okay, so we have seen that this high sea, this is beyond the country's boundary and this is common, open for use by all. Okay, so resources found in these areas, which constitute about 64% of the ocean surface, are open to extraction by anyone because they are not a property of any one country. It's open to all. But the exact manner in which it has to be carried out and all, they are governed by certain international and regional laws. Okay. And the most important one, the international laws are being defined by UN clause, United Nations Convention on the Law of Seas, which define the rights and the duties of the country, and they lay down the general principles which are acceptable, sorry, which are acceptable to all the countries. Okay. So High Seas Treaty. So now you might have understood High Seas Treaty will be the treaty that will take into consideration the managing the high seas area. Once it is ratified by the requisite number of countries and it becomes an international law, would operate under UN clause framework. So this High Seas Treaty, once it is ratified by the required number of countries and put it into implementation, it will be under the UN clause framework. So it will be implemented by UN clause. Okay. Then the next important thing, yeah. So the High Seas Treaty would define and demarcate marine protected areas, in biodiversity rich zones of the oceans that are under stress. So they will define and demarcate the marine protected areas which are under stress. And similarly, like how national parks or wildlife sanctuaries are managed, certain activities are permitted and not permitted. So depending upon the stress and the intensity, they will set down some rules and regulations with respect to deep sea mining, fishing, okay, all that. Treaty also seek to ensure that any benefits coming from the ocean life form, like the drug development, is considered as a global common. So whatever exploration you are doing in the high sea area, whatever benefits you are getting, it should be a common, global common, okay, free of IPR, and it should be shared with everyone. So that is being mentioned over here. Apart from that, besides commercial activities in the open oceans that are likely to result in causing large scale pollution would now require environment impact assessment. Okay, so you need to do environment impact assessment and then the activities will be permitted. Okay, now for your information, High Seas Treaty, also known as agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. So this is beyond national jurisdiction, okay? And the High Seas Treaty, it will come into would become international law 120 days after at least 60 countries submit their formal ratification documents. So 60 countries have to ratify and submit documents. So what is the status? 91 countries have signed but not ratified. Only 8 countries. So out of 60, so target is 60 countries should ratify. Only 8 have ratified and submitted their ratification. So once 60 countries submit their ratification, after 120 days, it will be operationalized. Okay. We can try this question, which came in the preliminary examination 2022. Okay. A coastal state has a right to establish the breadth of its territorial sea up to a limit not exceeding 12 nautical miles measured from the baseline determined in accordance with the convention. So yes, territorial sea, just now we have seen that if from the baseline it is 12 nautical miles is the, this is nautical, okay, not nanometer and all, it's a nautical miles. So this is the territorial sea. So territorial sea, okay. So coastal state, they have a right to establish this not exceeding 12 nautical miles as the territorial sea. So this is absolutely correct. Okay. So statement number 1 is correct. There it is. Yeah. Ship of all the states, whether coastal or landlocked, enjoy the right of innocent passage through territorial sea. So innocent passage in the sense, they have a freedom of navigation, so they can pass through this territorial sea, okay? And if there is any submarine, if there is any submarine underwater vehicle, what it has to do? It has to come to the surface and show its flag and quietly go. Okay, so innocent passage is allowed in the territorials. So even this statement is correct. Innocent passage in the sense you are giving them the permission to pass through your water, and that is permitted in the territorial waters. Okay, so that is correct. So statement number 2 is also correct. Innocent passage, I hope this is pretty clear that innocently, quietly, without harming, you are allowing them to pass. Okay. And if there is an underwater vehicle, it has to come to its surface. Submarine hai, so it has to come to its surface. The third point, exclusive economic zone shall not extend beyond 200 nautical miles from the baseline, correct? From which the breadth of is measured, correct? So this is a baseline. So from where we measure territorial sea, from the same baseline only, we measure 200 nautical miles as the exclusive economic zone. Even this is correct. The third one. So all the 3 statements are correct. Okay. Let's come towards the next article. Joblessness and the skill gap. So preliminary perspective, economic and social development. From the mains perspective, GS2, GS3, GS2, government policies and interventions, GS3, Indian economy and related issues. Okay. So Pranab Bardhan writes, most economists agree that lack of good quality jobs, particularly for the increasing Indian population, young population, is one of the urgent priorities to address. It is also considered to be one of the reason that in the recent elections, joblessness was the critical issue. So yes, joblessness, we know that India's working age population is increasing, um, but because of the lack of adequate skill set and lack of quality good jobs, many are jobless, okay? And this skill gap prevents whatever is the demand of the industry that is not being fulfilled by the Indian youngsters. So there is a joblessness, okay? So those who think growth will automatically solve the problem of jobs uh, overlooked that the 50 years of national surveys on employment and unemployment had made it clear that, see, basically earlier the scenario was that he, if there is an economic growth, definitely the growth will create. So if the growth is there, the GDP is increasing, automatically jobs will be created and employment will, people will get the jobs, okay? But then if you look at the record of the past 50 years, this is not the scenario. Though the GDP is increasing, but the jobs are not at the pace. They are not in sync with the growth in GDP, okay? It is a high time that all the political parties, both at center and state, they need to give attention towards the design, cost effectiveness, and implementation issues for different types of job promoting policies. So everyone has to come together and needs to design proper job promoting policies, okay? So we now have some accumulated experience of running rural employment guarantee schemes. Like we have Manarega, MG Narega is there, the rural employment guarantee scheme, which working since 2005. So this is for the rural area. So now it says that the talks have been going on that we need similar sort of scheme for the for the urban area as well. Okay, so that is being discussed. But such schemes, rural and urban schemes, they are just like a relief you are giving, a short term, like a distress employment. This is not a concrete or you can say long term solution. It is just a relief you are giving them, a short term temporary relief. So that cannot help. We want some concrete solution. So solutions are given. So this is an important thing you can write in your mains answer suggestions. Okay. So the very first one, uh, the biggest problem in India's unemployment is low skills and training. So we have to look into this. So mass scale vocational educational program is required, and that has to be, so vocational training has to be imparted, and you require apprenticeship. So that apprenticeship formal training has to be given in the industries. Okay, so that has to be done on the war footing. Second thing, in India, there is a plethora of capital subsidies. Capital subsidies in the sense you must be aware that if you want to install a solar panel, so you get a capital subsidy, right? Like if the cost is 1 lakh, so certain waiver will be given. You do not have to pay entire 1 lakh. Maybe 70,000 will be paid by the government. You have to pay just 30,000. So they say that instead of giving such capital in subsidies, you have to channelize that money into wage subsidy. Like if a private company, wage subsidy means what? If a private company is there, they're hiring a person and they are giving him a salary of, say, for example, 25,000. So certain portion has to be paid by the government, like so that the burden on the private sector also reduces. So say half salary or 10,000 is paid by the government and 15 is paid by the private. So that is a wage subsidy that could be given instead of just giving the capital subsidies that is being mentioned. Okay. Then we are familiar with the agriculture extension service. Agriculture extension services in the sense use of technology in agriculture sector. So we should also use this in the non-farm household enterprises to make them productive. So in the other enterprises also, you need to use technology. Then the next is basic income. So you know that inflation is increasing and all. And since a lot of unemployment is there, so the writer says that we need to give them certain basic income. So in case if they are unemployed for a particular time period, so they can at least have something for the survival. So these are the four solutions given. Okay. Let's come towards the next article. Yeah. Trade policy needs a reset. India's trade policy needs a reset. Okay, so GS3 Indian economy. India's forward looking approach to shaping multilateral disciplines in trade and investment matter has been demonstrated through its active participation in G20 and bilateral trade. So it says that India's forward looking approach, India is like actively participating in G20 forums, having bilateral trade, negotiation, dealings. So definitely India's perspective is being broadened. Same, it's being expected that India should show similar kind of active engagement when it comes to WTO negotiations. So when it comes to WTO negotiations, India have certain reservations. So the author says that the same forward-looking approach should be shown by India when it comes to WTO negotiations as well. Okay. So key takeaways over here. Yeah. The rules of global economic governance are being reshaped in the world by geoeconomics, emerging technologies, environment sustainability, global value chain, supply chain. Okay. So India as a rising economy have a substantial opportunity in this new paradigm. Okay. So India can take the advantage of all these scenarios, and India can emerge as a global economy. Achieving a new equilibrium of global rules will not be a frictionless. India's rising global stature demands that it plays a constructive role and projects its distinct personality in managing differences amidst changing dynamics. Okay, so basically it says that the India need to take the advantage of all these scenarios which are being present, and India has to evolve as a global leader, taking into consideration the growth rate of India, the global image of India. India has to showcase its constructive role. Okay, India's evolving domestic policy reforms are designed to promote its global integration by aiming to foster technology driven, environmentally sustainable economic growth, and the country is favored choice for global investors. Okay, so it says that whatever reforms are being taken by India, domestic reforms, they are in sync with the India's aim of global integration, and the way India is aiming to foster technology driven, environmentally sustainable growth. So many global investors are keen to invest in India. Okay, so that has been mentioned over here. So there are a lot of opportunities, especially in e-commerce and all, taking into consideration India's population and all. So there's a conducive environment ecosystem is there for e-commerce to thrive in India. Okay, but it says that despite of all these things, India should go away with its hesitancy, and India should actively participate in negotiations concerning e-commerce, trade, climate change within WTO. So as I mentioned that in the beginning, author says that India shows certain reservation when it comes to WTO. So it says that India should shed away its hesitancy and openly, actively, India need to have discussions on all these parameters, e-commerce, trade, climate change in WTO discussions. Okay, so that's it. That has been mentioned over here. Coming towards the next article talks about employment rate rises 6% provisionally in financial year 24 from 3.2% in financial year 23 RBI data. Employment rate, it means that number of people who are actively searching for employment. Okay, so youngsters are coming every year into this pool of employment rate. So employment rate has increased, okay, by 4.67 crore. Earlier it was 60, now it is 64.33 crore. Earlier it was 59.67 crore, okay. So this is according to the RBI data. According to periodic labor force survey, unemployment rate has decreased, okay. Unemployment rate has slightly decreased from 6.8% to 6.7. That is number of unemployed, little bit decrease in the number of people, those who are unemployed. Okay. Even female unemployment rate declined from 9.2% to 8.5%. Then labor force participation rate in urban area has shown an increasing trend. Labor force, that is people who are employed and who are willing to work. That is a labor force participation. Okay. So people who are willing to work and those who are already working. So that is a labor force participation. So that has also shown an increasing trend. Then also worker population ratio. So workers to population, like how many workers are there in the entire population. So even that has shown a slight increase. Okay. So that is a data given over here. Coming towards the next article, tracking accused on bail violates right to privacy. So this is from the quality perspective. So a recent judgment. So what is the ongoing story? A bench of justices, Oka and Ujjal Bhuyan, deleted the condition imposed by a trial court requiring a Nigerian national facing charges under Narcotics, Drug and Psychotropic Act 1965 to drop a pin on the Google map to ensure that his location is available to the investigation officer. Okay, so what's being mentioned over here? So a trial court had given a verdict that there was a Nigerian national. He was facing charges under NDPS Act, and he was given a bail. Okay, he was given a bail. So, but the trial court said that you have to put you have to keep your Google location active and pin so that you will be continuously traced wherever you are going. Okay. So the bench of justice, they said that, this affects or this violates right to privacy. Okay. So you can see over here, Supreme Court. So key takeaways. Supreme Court on Monday ruled that imposing any such bail condition which enables police or investigation agency to track every movement of the accused who is released on bail by the use of any technology, it violates the right to privacy under article number 21. Okay. So the judgment said that such constant vigil on the accused by imposing drastic bail conditions will amount to keeping the accused in some kind of confinement, like only even like outside, he's just outside, but still you are monitoring all his movement. It's just like some sort of confinement only. So such a condition cannot be a condition of a bail. So for your information, on 5th of November 2023, a special court in Jammu granted a bail to Ghulam Mohammad Bhatt, who had been accused of terror financing under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. So he was given a bail on the condition that he has to wear a GPS tracker around his anklet. So this was the very first case in the country where a GPS enabled tracking device was allowed to be used by a person who was on bail. But now Supreme Court has clearly said that you cannot impose such conditions. It violates the right to privacy. Okay. So this was a question, a very simple question in 2021. Right to privacy is protected under which article of the Constitution? So article number 21, right to life and personal liberty. Coming towards the next article, Modi Moscow message, deepen ties, no solution on battlefield. Okay, so important article from the international relations perspective. So yesterday only we discussed that our Prime Minister planned a visit to Russia, and since he's sworn in as the Prime Minister for the third time, usually there was a convention that Prime Minister visits the neighboring country of India. But this time, Mr. Modi has broken the convention, traditional convention, and he decided to visit Russia. Okay, so that is being mentioned, and key takeaways. So Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin met on Monday night, and in the suburbs of Moscow, that is Novo Ogaryovo. And on 22nd of July, they will have the annual summit, India-Russia annual summit. So according to the experts, the discussion will be on energy, trade, manufacturing, and fertilizer. Okay. And we have just seen that the trade between India and Russia, it's all-time high, $65 billion. Also, in the area of nuclear energy, Kundan Kulan nuclear power plant, which is constructed with the help of Russia. It's in Tamil Nadu. Okay. So unit 1 and 2 are already operational, and unit 3 and 4, they are in progress. Okay. So that is being there. In Samarkand, that is Uzbekistan, on the sidelines of Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in 2022, where Modi had a meeting with Putin. So Modi said to Putin that this is not the end of This is not the era of war. A similar tone was adopted in G20 Bali Declaration, okay, by Western countries. So, Ukraine war has put India into delicate diplomatic position with its Western allies. So, New Delhi has walked a tightrope, okay, while not explicitly condemning the Russian invasion, but calling for international probe in massacres in the early weeks of the war, okay. Coming towards the other things, what is cognitive test, which many want Joe Biden to undertake? Okay. So, amid a concern over 81-year-old Joe Biden's fitness to stay in the race for White House, there have been calls for the president to take a cognitive test to determine the level of his mental acuity. Okay. So, many people are saying that he is facing, in order to test the fitness of Joe Biden as a presidential candidate for yet another term. So they're saying that the Biden should undergo a cognitive test. So cognitive test, it is a test which will check for the problems with cognition, which includes brain functions like thinking, learning, remembering, using judgment and language. Okay, so that is being there. Problems with cognition are described as cognitive impairment. Then the next is cannot lampoon. Supreme Court issues rules on portraying disabled person in films. Okay. So creative freedom of filmmaker under Article number 19(1)(a), freedom of speech and expression, cannot include freedom to lampoon. Lampoon means publicly criticize. Okay. Or like the filmmakers cannot publicly criticize or create certain type of stereotypes, misrepresent those who are already marginalized. The Supreme Court said this while laying a framework of portrayal of persons with disabilities in visual media that aligns with anti-discrimination and dignity affirming objectives of the Constitution, as well as right for persons with uh, right for persons with disabilities act. Okay, so the Supreme Court says that you cannot lampoon, publicly criticize uh, physically disabled people, and this is with respect to the portrayal of disabled in the movies. Okay, then the third important thing, menstrual leave policy. So this is a news, menstrual leave policy. So certain state governments are forcing private companies to provide menstrual leave. Okay, but the court has said that instead of just imposing it, you make some law. So menstrual leave, you guys must be aware that women during the menstrual cycle undergo a lot of pain, and it's not a productive time to they cannot be productive if they, even if they decide to join office or during that period, even if they decide to work. So it's better you give them the rest, okay? But then just forcing the companies, it's not a solution. Rather than what could be done, you make a policy, or instead of giving, okay, sometimes it feels to be discriminatory. So what could be done? The alternative could be give a sick leave. So per month, like women usually 1 or 2 days of the menstrual cycle. For some ladies, it's up to 4 days also. They undergo a lot of pain. So what could be done? You can allot in every month 4 days sick leave. So women, those who are on the menstrual pain, they can avail this. Okay. For men, if they are not well, there is a fever and all, they can also avail it. So instead of declaring any leave as a menstrual leave, if it seems to be a discriminatory one, the option could be to declare a general leave as a sick leave for everyone, depending upon your case. It could be availed. Okay, so that's it. That's it for 9th of July. Thank you.